It wasn't supposed to happen this early. Yet, on a cold November morning, the Midwest awoke to a storm that felt more like January than fall. An early-season snowstorm swept across Illinois and Indiana, transforming familiar streets into frozen wastelands and catching thousands off guard. Within hours, traffic stalled, schools closed, and the quiet hum of everyday life vanished beneath a curtain of white. From Chicago's skyline to the open farmlands of Kankakee, the storm unleashed blinding snow squalls and biting winds topping 40 miles per hour. Drivers stranded on highways sent out desperate calls for help, while plows struggled to keep up with snowfall rates exceeding 2 inches per hour. For many, this was the first true reminder that winter in the Midwest doesn't wait for permission. It simply arrives unapologetically fierce and breathtakingly fast. And this was only the beginning. By dawn, the snowstorm had turned relentless. A cold front from Canada collided with warm air rising off Lake Michigan, igniting a textbook case of lake-effect snow, except this time it was supercharged. Narrow but ferocious snow bands hammered the same regions for hours, dumping piles of snow faster than plows could clear them. In northwestern Indiana, whiteout conditions reduced visibility to less than 50 feet. Highways resembled Arctic tunnels lined with stranded vehicles glazed in ice. In Kankakee County, emergency crews struggled to respond as reports of spinouts and fender benders poured in. Motorists abandoned cars along the interstate, walking through chest-high drifts toward faint lights on the horizon. Local radio stations switched to continuous updates, warning listeners to stay indoors at all costs. Across Chicago's southern suburbs, the storm hit unevenly, one neighborhood buried under a foot of snow, another barely dusted. But where it struck hardest, it struck mercilessly. Side streets disappeared beneath snowbanks taller than stop signs, and power flickered as wind gusts pushed trees onto frozen lines. Within hours, the Midwest's beating heart had slowed to a crawl, locked in winter's grip long before the calendar said it was time. As night fell, the storm transformed into a full-blown siege. The air howled with 40-mile gusts, turning every exposed surface into a sheet of ice. Snow drifts swallowed cars, fences, and porches, blurring the line between street and yard. In Momence, Illinois, firefighters worked through whiteout conditions to reach a family trapped inside their vehicle after sliding off a county road. Emergency lights disappeared into walls of snow, their glow quickly consumed by the blizzard's fury. Inside, homes' furnaces strained to keep up as temperatures plummeted into the teens. Power flickered across towns like Lowell and Crown Point, where residents lit candles and huddled under blankets. Grocery stores that had closed early now sat in total darkness, their parking lots buried in snow. Truck drivers parked under overpasses to wait out the storm engines idling just to keep warm. Parents comforted anxious children while radio stations replayed the same warning: stay inside. Help may not reach you for hours. By midnight, state troopers in Illinois and Indiana had declared dozens of roads impassable. What had started as a typical November cold front had evolved into a paralyzing winter assault, one that tested every ounce of patience, courage, and endurance across the snow-covered Midwest.
Alright, the winds are coming back.
Oh my god.
What unfolded over Illinois and Indiana wasn't just a snowstorm, it was a meteorological masterpiece shaped by the unique power of Lake Michigan. As Arctic air plunged southward, it swept over the lake's comparatively warm surface about 45 degrees Celsius, at the time picking up moisture and heat. This process, known as lake effect snow, created long, narrow bands of clouds that unleashed relentless snowfall on everything in their path. These snow bands were incredibly localized. One town could see 12 inches of accumulation, while a community just 10 miles away barely registered an inch. The instability between the frigid air and the warmer lake water intensified convection, leading to explosive bursts of snow accompanied by thunder. Snow flashes of lightning hidden within the blizzard. Meteorologists at the National Weather Service in Chicago described the system as a textbook event, but unusually intense for early November. The combination of strong winds, deep moisture, and atmospheric lift produced near-constant snowfall for more than 18 hours. While lake-effect snow is a familiar winter hazard for Midwesterners, the timing and strength of this storm caught many by surprise, a reminder of how rapidly weather patterns can shift as climate dynamics become increasingly unpredictable. The science was clear: the lake had turned into a snow factory.
Any wind readings, my anemometer has been filled to the brim with snow. So about Alright, the snow's died down and the sun is rising.
When daylight finally broke, the damage told stories no headline could capture. In southern Cook County, rescue teams trudged through waist-deep snow to reach homes where elderly residents had been stranded overnight. One volunteer firefighter described it as walking through silence except for the wind. Cars sat half-buried at odd angles, doors frozen shut, their owners long gone to seek shelter. At a rest stop near I-65, truck drivers huddled together, sharing thermoses of coffee and phone batteries as their rigs idled in the cold. In Kankakee, families woke to find snow packed against their doors like cement, forcing them to dig their way out. Children pressed faces to frosted windows, mesmerized and terrified all at once by the white world outside. Hospitals reported dozens of cases of frostbite and hypothermia as residents underestimated how quickly exposure could turn deadly. In neighborhoods where the power went out, people gathered in living rooms around gas stoves or fireplaces, taking turns sleeping to make sure the flames didn't die. It was more than just a snowstorm, it was survival. The kind that stripped life down to its essentials: warmth, light, and human connection. And for those who endured it, the Midwest had never felt both so fragile and so fiercely alive.
Alright, the winds are coming back.
By mid-morning, the Midwest was mobilized. More than 300 snowplows rolled out across Illinois and Indiana, their flashing amber lights cutting through the white haze. The Illinois Department of Transportation declared a state of emergency, urging residents to stay home as crews fought to reopen vital corridors like Interstate 57 and U.S. Route 41. Local police and the National Guard coordinated rescue operations for stranded drivers, using Humvees and snowmobiles to navigate impassable roads. In Lake County, emergency shelters filled quickly as volunteers served hot meals to families who'd lost heat overnight. Across the border in Indiana, churches and high schools opened gymnasiums to hundreds of evacuees. Airports remained paralyzed. At O'Hare International, more than 400 flights were canceled, while Midway saw runways buried under several inches of compacted snow. Power companies dispatched crews around the clock to restore electricity, battling freezing rain and fallen tree limbs that threatened lines. Social media became a lifeline. A digital neighborhood watch where residents shared updates, offered spare rooms, or warned of blocked intersections. Through it all, the resilience of Midwestern communities shone bright. Amid chaos and cold strangers helped strangers, proving that even in the darkest blizzard, the human spirit burns warmer than any fire.
Don't turn it here, straight back up again. Pull back, pull back.
In the days that followed, snowbanks towered like walls, and the hum of snowblowers replaced the howling wind. The Midwest began to thaw not just from the storm's chill, but from the shared realization of how quickly normal life can vanish. In moments of crisis, it wasn't power or wealth that defined survival, it was community. Neighbors cleared each other's driveways, shared generators, and brought hot soup to those still without heat. Meteorologists reflected on what made this early-season storm so intense. Warmer lake temperatures and shifting jet stream patterns, both symptoms of a changing climate, may have fueled the storm's rapid growth. Experts warned that events once considered rare could become more frequent, especially around the Great Lakes where warm water provides endless energy to cold air systems. For residents of Illinois and Indiana, the lesson was clear. Preparedness isn't just about stocking salt or charging batteries, it's about solidarity. Each act of kindness, each shovel lifted in freezing wind was a reminder that resilience isn't built in calm weather, it's forged in the storm. As dawn broke over the snow-covered Midwest, the storm's fury faded into silence. Streets that once echoed with the grind of plows and the howl of wind now lay still beneath a glittering white blanket. For a moment, everything seemed frozen in time: cars, trees, rooftops, and yet life pulsed quietly beneath the ice. Families stepped outside, blinking in the pale morning light, seeing both loss and beauty intertwined. This was more than weather. It was a reminder that nature in its power and unpredictability still writes the rules. That even the most familiar landscapes, highways, front yards, city skylines can transform overnight into scenes of awe and fragility. The Midwest will recover as it always does. Roads will clear, lights will return, and warmth will find its way back into homes. But let this storm remind us the real strength of a community isn't tested by sunshine, but by snow. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe, and help keep awareness alive for those facing the next great storm.